No time at all. We'll cut this out later. My name is Mr. Henry. Welcome back to Real News, ladies and gentlemen. Go right now to our fantastic guest online, Abby Johnson, a former Planned Parenthood director whose new film now is about the radical conversion about after witnessing an abortion. The movie is called Unplanned. It is in select theaters right now. I stress select theaters right now. A whole different story right there. She's the current founder and director, however, of this organization entitled And Then There Were None, the only ministry in the nation that helps abortion workers leave their jobs and find life-affirming ones. Plus, offers healing retreats, financial and emotional assistance, and counseling services. Since 2012, this organization, And Then There Were None, helped almost 500 workers leave the industry. And tell me if I'm wrong here. The website is abortionworker.com for more information. And then there were none. Abby Johnson, let me start by saying I'm sure you are absolutely exhausted right now with the number of interviews and everything you've done. In all sincerity, with as much candor as I can express, I truly appreciate you coming on our program this morning.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I'm so glad to be on with you.
And I don't want to give too many spoilers here. I would implore our audience members to go watch the movie and see this for yourself in person. But just so we can develop some simple context, and then I want to dive into the 7-level analysis of really where you're coming from. General opening questions, if you will. Talk us through the transition period from being one of the youngest Planned Parenthood clinic directors in the history of the organization, Employee of the Year, to now having this resounding advocacy for compassion and care for the mother seeking healing and struggling with these decisions and the pro-life movement. What was that transitionary period?
Well, I ended up, there were several things that happened over the course of 2009 to really it caused me to question what we were doing within the organization. But ultimately, I ended up leaving after witnessing a live ultrasound-guided abortion procedure, seeing a 13-week-old unborn child fight and struggle for his life, and recognizing that I could no longer pretend that there wasn't humanity in the womb. I could no longer conveniently disconnect a mother from her child and pretend like that child didn't matter or didn't have value. So I ended up leaving and have been trying to expose what's taking place inside of abortion clinics ever since, and have really tried to help facilitate healing for those who have been.
And let me ask you, Abby, and tell me full ahead of time, I don't mean to unwilling or don't want to go back into. Prior to working for Planned Parenthood, or maybe even during, am I correct in saying that you've actually had 2 abortions?
Right, yeah, I've had 2 abortions myself, yeah.
Now, when you witnessed that situation going on, the one that you just described, was there an immediate sense of some mental anguish that you were going through, aside from just seeing the, at the time, fetus or conjugation of cells, or maybe at the time prior to feeling that what you would have called that, then transitioning to seeing a human life struggle for survival? I'm sure there was some sort of, visceral sense that you saw it on a screen, but was there anything that you personalized? You don't understand what I'm saying of the decisions that you made in the past?
Yeah, I mean, right at that time, I really wasn't thinking about my own abortions. I was thinking about that child that I witnessed being aborted, and I was thinking about all these other women who had come into our clinic seeking help, and we had just lied to them, and I really didn't come to process my own 2 abortions until after I had left the clinic.
And the reason why I brought that up is because I think it's a good transitional into what you just brought up in my next question here. I don't know if you agree with me or not. I have the conception that unfortunately it seems like Christians have largely dropped the ball in how to have a compassionate response on this issue. You know what I'm saying? It seems like the organization now, And Then There Were None, unless I'm wrong, seems like one of the primary motivating factors is all about helping these women, compassionately helping these women, reaching out. We're not standing in picket lines here. These women are desperately struggling with this decision, and it seems like nobody alternative decision is doing it out of a sense of love. Is there some of that within the organization?
Yeah, I mean that's it. I mean, we always say that we're a pro-love organization, and which for me, goes much higher than just being pro-life. We believe that, when you love someone first, then life will naturally follow. And, our goal really is to, when we first started and then there were none, I went to a lot of friends and, people that I knew and just said, hey, what do you think? I got this idea, and the answer from everybody that I talked to, Christian people, was, well, we think they're too far gone.
Wow.
So we just don't worry about them. And I just thought, what? Like, if you ever think anyone is too far gone to be reached by the hand of God, then we must not be serving the same God. I mean, look what he did to Paul, look what he did to King David. I mean, there's so many stories in the Bible that talk about God's radical transformation in someone's life. But that was what I realized, was that this was a group of people who the majority of the pro-life movement had cast aside as reprobates and people who were too far removed from God's grace. And we are showing people through love, through compassion, that is a lie, that there is no one too far gone for God's grace. And it's working. I mean, here we are, 500 workers who are now in a relationship with Christ, 500 of children created by God, his children, who are now in relationship with him. And I just think that has to make God so incredibly happy.
Absolutely. And, I heard you saying Glenn Beck's program one time before, too, that it just seems to be an unfortunate thing that if you're sort of standing outside picketing and making an example out of these women that are trying to struggle through this decision, what you end up doing if you're screaming at these women on the way in, unfortunately, you end up making Planned Parenthood a safe space. Now, whether you agree with that or not, it does go, not you, but the proverbial you out there listening in the terrestrial waves right now, whether you agree with that or not, it does stand to reason that if you're forcing someone into something, you're going to cause them to seek shelter in the place that you don't want them to seek shelter. Ginger is in Facebook asking us a follow-up question based upon that. Can you please ask Abby what materials might be available from abortionworker.com for the And Then There Were None organization? What materials might be available for those that are working sidewalks right now to handle this in a more compassionate, more effective manner?
Sure. So, if people go to abortionworker.com, there's a tab there that has resources on it. It says resources, and you can go to the principles link under resources, and there's a ton of information there. You can download different flyers, different things to help you, especially if you're out there on the sidewalk, to get information into the hands of these workers. But honestly, simply just being out there and saying, hey, there's help for you, go to abortionworker.com. We find that is incredibly successful because they don't even know that there's help.
Right.
So just letting them know that there's a safe place for them is really helpful, and that makes a big difference.
And Abby, I want to be respectful of your time here. Again, I'm sure I can't even imagine what your day looks like going forward, but 2 follow-up questions here for you. 10, I was just saying 10. Oh, okay. Is that right? Awesome. Okay. Yeah, well, there you go. I want to have a follow-up question here. Honestly, I have a principle of being somewhat vulnerable with my audience. I'll be vulnerable again one more time. When I've heard you tell this story before, I think only one occasion I haven't gotten choked up and been somewhat tearful. So I'm going to try and do this my best on air right now to not have this happen again. But for our audience members, the Real News audience members, can you walk us through that scene? There's a scene in the movie where you find out that you're pregnant, and obviously one would presume, because this is correct, that this happened in real life. But there's a scene in the movie where you were pregnant, working for Planned Parenthood. Your boss comes in and says something to the effect of, "Oh, we can take care of that for you." Now, fast forward more than a couple years, and you're in a cinema watching this with your daughter, who the one that they were talking about. Walk us through that real quick.
Yeah, I actually had not even thought about that. I don't know, it was a mom fail, I guess, but I'm sitting there in a film with Grace, with our daughter, and she's watching it for the first time in full length. She'd seen some clips, but had not watched it all the way through. And, of course, I'm thinking, oh, well, seeing the ultrasound-guided abortion, that's going to be the hardest thing, or, all this kind of stuff. But that scene with that pregnancy test, and then the subsequent scene where I'm basically having to negotiate with my boss about my pregnancy, continuing my pregnancy, my daughter, I look over and she's just like in tears. And I thought, oh my gosh, she realizes that was her. Mm. And so after the film, I said, well, what do you think? And she said, we sort of talked about that scene, and she said, Mom, I'm just so thankful because I didn't realize that you had to fight for me. And I just didn't understand how easy it was for women to get an abortion. And we never ever considered abortion with Grace, but, she has had to, we're, of course, there to help her with this, but, she understands that, she is missing 2 siblings because of abortion. And that it's just, it's a lot to process, but she's very mature, but it's a lot to process for a 12-year-old girl, especially when it's so personal in her family. But I tell you what, I tell people I'd put my daughter up against any pro-choice advocate any day of the week because that is strong in her faith and she is strong in her pro-life conviction because it's just so black and white to her. And, it's these little compromises, it's sin that causes us to shift our beliefs from truth to moral relativism. And, she embraces that truth. There's no gray for her. And, the Bible talks about us being more like children. I think in situations like this, moral situations, we really do need to think more like children.
Again, joined by Abby Johnson right now, former Planned Parenthood director. A new film made about her life is entitled Unplanned. The organization she works for now is entitled And Then There Were None. And Then There Were None. Helped almost 500 workers leave the industry, not just Planned Parenthood industry, but others. The website associated with that organization is abortionworker.com. That's abortionworker.com. Based upon what your daughter said there, the question, not the question, but the statement she said, she didn't realize how easy it was to seek an abortion. During my first semester of law school, I had one of my common law professors. She's a female. She makes this argument to every single one of her classes every single year, saying something to the effect of, unfortunately, a third or fourth wave issue of feminism has essentially created a frat boy's dream world. Now, what she meant by that is the responsibility has been taken entirely off of the males. The onus is entirely upon the females because, after all, it is your body and your choice. But then that inevitably means that it's you. The women alone have to deal with the potential social ostracism. The women alone have to deal with getting kicked out of their communities, being ostracized and excommunicated from their churches, being looked at. It's all on the women. Everything is on the women. The men have nothing to do anything with it anymore. And that, like I said, it's a major win in the terrible misogynist win column. Now, the point I'm asking with that, bringing back what your daughter said, is she says it's easy to seek abortions. Do you find at all, though, from the women that you talk to, that there's almost a social pressure to seek that as at least a decision, if not a first decision?
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of people who, I can tell you when I had my abortion, I would love to tell you that I really sat down and thought about all of my options, but I didn't. My boyfriend at the time said, "Oh, no problem. We'll take you to have an abortion." And that was it. Once that was put into my mind, I thought, okay, problem solved, crisis averted. I think that's the way that a lot of women believe, because society has so normalized and sanitized abortion that it is often that first go-to when a woman has a crisis pregnancy. I mean, there was a study done by Dr. David Reardon. He's a psychologist, and he found that 64% of women feel coerced or pressured into having an abortion. That's not choice.
Wow.
That's why the whole idea of being pro-choice is such a lie, because there's never a time where a woman walks in to have an abortion where she says, well, I'm just so excited to exercise my right to choose today. Women have abortions because they feel like they have no other choice. And that's where we really have to come in the pro-life movement, is to let them know that there are other options, there are other choices, and that we are there to help.
Again, one final time, current founder and director of And Then There Were None. This is the only ministry in the nation that helps abortion workers leave their jobs, find life-affirming ones, offers healing retreats, financial and emotional assistance. And final question here for you. Let me ask this. Why did you take this calling on? I mean, the spiritual target that you painted on yourself right now is one that, quite honestly, I would probably not wish upon my worst enemy. Additionally, I'm sure the public backlash must be overwhelming. Where do you find the motivation and to continually deal with this charge placed upon your life, this calling? Is it how you see it's benefited the women you've saved? Is it something you're getting from God? Is it a coalition of both of those? I wouldn't do this. I'm not strong enough for this. You know what I'm saying? Where do you find that?
It's definitely just grace from God. I mean, I know that's like a Sunday school answer, but really, God has placed this calling on my life, and for whatever reason, it's not what I wanted, but it's what He's put there. And I have prayed before, God, please shut this door. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to be at home with my family.
Right.
I don't want to travel, but he does never shut that door. And I made a promise to God that as long as the door is open, I will continue to walk through it. And I have to be faithful to that promise that I made Him. And it's not always easy. I sacrifice a lot of time away from my family, but I have to believe that in the end, God will reward that sacrifice. I see these children's lives who are being saved because of this message, not just my message, but just the pro-life message, women who are being healed, abortion workers who are coming to Christ. And I just think, how can I stop? How can I stop doing this?
Again, Abby Johnson has been joining us this morning. I cannot express enough how much we appreciate you coming on the program. On the way out here, I've stressed the website a number of times, abortionworker.com. Any other websites, Twitter, Facebook accounts, any other handles you'd like people to know about on the way out?
Well, I would say that for information about the film and where the film is is playing near you, playing in 1,700 theaters right now, they can go to unplannedtickets.com and find out where they can see the film. We need people going out and watching the film. We need the box office. We need the numbers to continue to be high. We need the film to continue to do well so that we can keep it in the theaters and keep expanding theaters as long as possible.
Yeah, and continue to ride that wave. I heard a story about that they shut down the Unplanned Twitter account, and they caused such an outcry that when it finally was reinstated, apparently the Unplanned Twitter account now has more followers than the Planned Parenthood Twitter account does.
Yes,
which I just
amazing, yes.
I think that's absolutely beautiful. But again, Abby Johnson, thank you so much for joining us this morning on Real News, and we appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, there goes Abby Johnson. We'll hit this break and be back with more. On here now, but I'll post this later. It's basically what's going to be played tomorrow. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. Yeah, it is what it is. Y'all the best. We'll see you soon.